The answer to the question in the title of this video is yes, but that's not very helpful. I'd like to start by saying that market research is your friend, not your enemy. Perhaps you think that market research is too corporate or too time consuming and you're just gonna make the game and worry about whether there's an audience for it later. Or maybe you know that market research is important, but you're not quite sure what it is or what you should be doing. So let's start right at the beginning. The market in market research just means a place where buyers and sellers interact. In the context of game development, it means a place where game developers go to sell their games to players. So Steam is a market. If Steam was a physical market, market research would be the equivalent of walking around a load of stalls and looking at what other game developers are selling on their stalls. You might call this nosy, but when we visit these metaphorical stalls, we can start to understand who is buying the games, your audience, games that are competing with you for players' attention, your competitors, what is selling well and what isn't, trends, and what other developers are doing to get the attention of players, which is marketing. If we were to walk around the whole of Steam, we would be there for years, so we only really want to look at stalls that are selling similar games to us. This group of similar stalls is called a market segment. This means that we can gather more relevant information about who our competitors are, the types of people who play these specific games, the successes and failures in both the game design and the ways that developers have attracted players to their game. We don't just want to look at successful games though, we want to look at the ones that maybe didn't do so well so that we can figure out what went wrong and not make the same mistakes. Researching similar games in your market segment will also help you set realistic expectations for how many games you can sell. For example, if the 100 most similar games to you have only sold a maximum of 1,000 copies each, you're unlikely to sell more than that because maybe there just aren't enough players playing these games, or maybe there are too many similar games diluting the player base. So that's what market research is. A process where you find games that are similar to yours so that you can gather information about the people who play them, what they like and don't like, and set wishlist and sales targets based on the other games in that market segment and what they've achieved. You don't even need to be making a game to do market research. You could investigate an idea that you have by finding similar games to that idea and looking what they've achieved, or you could look at similar games around a title that you're inspired by to look at what the market looks like around that. So where did market research come from? To an extent, market research has always been a thing, but before the 1900s there wasn't really a term for it. Businesses were doing simple surveys, observations, gathering information about prices and products, but there was no formal process. That is until a man called Charles Coleridge Parlin came along. He was hired by a publishing company to systematically study consumer behaviour. In the 1920s, consumers were getting tired of aggressive, generalised sales tactics, and businesses realised they needed to get to know their customers better in order to reach them. Then, radio advertising came along and kicked it up a notch, signalling the start of modern advertising and a need for understanding your market in order to succeed. But what is the purpose of market research? What can it actually tell you? Firstly, right at the start, before you've built anything, it can tell you whether an idea you have is worth pursuing or not. In other words, it helps you validate your game ideas. As you'll know, building a game takes a lot of your time, but market research can tell you whether an idea is worth your time and commitment. Secondly, when you've got an idea, market research can really guide your creativity. It can give you inspiration for features that help you stand out from similar games, and it can also tell you what players want from the type of game that you're making. Thirdly, once you've found your closest competitors, you can take a look at how they spread the word about their game to players. You can find out what social media they used, whether they used streamers, what content and messages they put in their marketing, and whether it worked or not. Finally, you can use the wishlist and sales figures of similar games to find out whether there actually are any people playing these types of games. Knowing what you could expect in terms of wishlist and sales will save you a lot of disappointment and sadness, especially if the numbers in your market segment are particularly low. So that's it. Hopefully you now know what market research is, where it came from, and what it can help you figure out. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be doing a video on how you actually do market research. So make sure you're subscribed for that and that you don't miss out.